Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out O through P, as I promised. So, let's get right into it, shall we? Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds, what the fuck is this doing up the top? This is a two-dimensional platformer, beat 'em up with lots of enemies, lots of stuff to collect, and leveling and moves to unlock. And it's got an interesting graphical style, which kind of blends the line between comic and 2D art. It looks pretty good though, all things considered. There's a lot of enemies to beat up, lots of different moves to unlock. You have to play through the levels with pretty much every character. Unfortunately, they do that thing where they give you every single move in the first level and then take it all away for the next few levels. So, yeah, that's a little bit disappointing. But there's a bunch of different characters to play and level up. There is online multiplayer if you want to go through with another player. And there's a bunch of different moves to know and unlock. There's a bunch of stuff the game won't tell you about unless you go look through the manual, which is a little annoying. But, yeah, it's pretty neat. I don't mind it. It's just, I think there are better beat-em-up games on the Vita. You can also buy, what's her name? Kurisu from, Kurisu from Steins Gate, which is an odd crossover, but we'll let it go. Octodad, Dadliest Catch. This is a physics-based puzzle game where you have to go through the world as a fucking octopus who can't control his body motions. And you have to go and do a bunch of different individual goals in order to, just keep up the image that you're a lovely dad. It's a very weird comedy thing, but it works pretty much every time they play on it. It's a very funny game, and there's a lot of silly stuff that you have to go do. Like, see this stuff here? Like, you have to play a bunch of arcade games and stuff like that. It's so weird. The game's got an even weirder control scheme as well, because you control all the individual limbs at once. So you control the legs and the arms. And there's an alert meter, so you got to try and avoid being seen doing stupid stuff, which is kind of great. It is a really funny game, and it's got a bunch of content in it. We're talking 3 or 4 hours worth of levels, and there's a bunch of bonus levels included as well. So it's a good game. It's well worth picking up. Oddworld Much's Odyssey HD. It's a 3D platformer from 2001 where you have to go through as either Abe or Munch, and you have to try and save all your Madokan friends by leading them to portals and doing puzzles and stuff like that. And it's a little bit of a pain because, it's a game from like 2001 or something. So, yeah, it's kind of annoying, but at the same time, it's still alright. Not terrible, but I prefer all the other Oddworld games over this one. Except for this one. Oddworld New and Tasty is a remake of the very first one, which was Oddworld Abe's Odyssey. And it's a two-dimensional platformer, like cinematic platformer, at least the original was, this one isn't, where you have to go through Save Your Madokans through a bunch of 2D platformers, and 2D platforming challenges, I should say. And for some reason it's not listed here on the store. And the remake is just worse in almost every conceivable aspect in comparison to the original one. The original one had a better graphical style. This one's more lit up and ridiculous. The original wasn't buggy. This one is. The original had better voice acting. This one doesn't. It's really strange how they managed to bugger it up so badly. How everything managed to be worse somehow, in some way, for some reason. It was just weird. Then again, they did include checkpoints, but then again, they did include advertisements for other games. Like, there's ads for Velocity 2X in Oddworld New and Tasty for no good reason. It's like they didn't even get the original message of Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, which is weird. Oddworld Stranger's Wrath thankfully goes in an entirely different direction. It's a HD remaster of a game that came out in like 2004. It's a shooter with puzzle elements. So you get a bunch of different types of ammo that you can throw out. Ones that'll make enemies angry, ones that'll trip them up, ones that'll just hurt them in general, ones that'll power up stuff and stuff like that. And you have to go through and try and capture or kill as many enemies as possible for money and loot to get surgery to save your life. And it is a really well put together game. There's lots of different ways to solve your problems. You can capture as many criminals as you can alive, or you can kill them all if you want to. It's an interesting dynamic of choosing what you want to do. It's a really neat game. It's a really neat shooter. It's well worth picking up. Shooter, cross-platformer, whatever. Oli Oli is a game played entirely with the analog stick and the X button. The idea is, you can do a bunch of tricks in the air, and then you have to hold the analog stick in order to do ollies and then grind on these lines. It's a bit of a precision platformer more than anything else. That guy just fell off and died. But yeah, the idea is that you have to grind through as many of these straight courses as possible, getting as many points as possible, and completing as many objectives as possible. And there's lots of different tricks you can do with the shoulder buttons and the analog sticks, and you have to land it perfectly every time by pressing the X button as soon as you land. So it's a very precision-focused game. But it's also very, very, I'm not going to use the word addictive, compulsive. It's compelling. You end up wanting to play a lot and improve your scores a lot. And there's a lot of challenges. There's the daily grind, which is the daily level. I wish there was a level editor, but there isn't. Now there's Ollie Ollie 2. Unfortunately, we're not getting Ollie Ollie 2 XL as far as I'm aware, which is a massive kick in the dick, but whatever. It's the sequel. It's got more stuff to it. It's probably the better game to play first, but yeah. Still, pretty good. OMG HD Zombies. It's a puzzle game where you've got a ton of zombies on an individual level at once, and when you shoot one, they will swell up and explode, taking out all the zombies around them. There's also a bunch of other special zombies, like there's a cop zombie that'll shoot in a straight line. There's a military zombie that'll shoot in multiple directions. There's flame zombies, which will explode and set everything else on fire. There's a bunch of different zombies. They all do different things, and it's a really, really good puzzle game. Because the better you do, the higher medal you get, the more money you get, and the more ways you can actually upgrade the zombies, and you upgrade the zombies and they do more stuff. So you can go through and play old levels to get more upgrade stuff for new levels. It's a really enjoyable puzzle game. It lasts for a few hours and you'll get plenty of fun out of it, because the chain reactions are some of the most satisfying things in a puzzle game that I've seen. One Piece Unlimited World Red. It's a 3D hunting game from the Dynasty Warriors guys. You go around these big 3D areas with the One Piece characters. You fight these gigantic bosses. You have like a ton of different characters with their own set of moves and all that. And if you do all their moves successfully, you get to do a bigger move and you get to break enemies' guard and concentration. You've got this big world that you can upgrade with materials and stuff like that. It's very lightweight and it's not a very like hard or difficult hunting game, but it's actually alright. And the writing is not fantastic. There are a few like typos in there, but it's alright. Perfectly fine game. If you're looking for a lightweight hunting game to play in between things, well, there you go. One Piece Pirate Warriors 3 is the Dynasty Warriors spin-off of the series, and they go through the entire story from the very beginning, and the game, well optimized, looks great, tells the story pretty well, has great voice acting, and it has a lot of character drama, and it actually got me interested in One Piece, so they did a pretty good job with Pirate Warriors 3. Open Me is an AR game where you have to use your camera around a VR card in order to, where you use your camera around a VR card in order to open up a series of specific boxes. These boxes all have different puzzles on different sides of the box, so you have to go and solve multiple boxes, and you've also got multiplayer boxes, which is actually a really neat idea, but unfortunately, it's just a bit of a pain in the ass to do the VR boxes. It's like that game, Nobody Explodes. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was just a bomb game where you had to rotate a bomb and like that. Same thing with a box and a time limit. It's pretty good. It's fun. It's just a bit of a pain to play these days since you need an AR card. That's all. Operation Abyss, New Tokyo Legacy. This is the game that came after Demon Gaze, and it's basically a worse version of that. They changed a few things, like there's a different story, obviously. Magic now costs individual uses of individual tiers of magic, and there's just a more typical loot system, but it's just not as interesting as previous, so unfortunate that that isn't the case, but oh well. Oroshika Tainted Bloodlines. This is an RPG, and the idea behind it is that you are the member of a cursed family, and you have 3 years of life left from birth to death. So, you have to be constantly raising family members to be your battle members in this battle RPG, and you have to go through and get resources, and then your clan members will die, and then you'll replace them with new clan members. And it's actually a really fun idea. And even better, they let you change like the time scale. So you can set it to the point where the game will take 150 hours to finish and you guys won't die for like 10 or something hours. It's actually a really neat concept where you only have limited time to get everything done. And you have to be constantly building up your family. And considering there's $10, if that concept sounds appealing to you in any way, it's probably worth picking up. Algorithm! This is like one of the very first games I ever did a video on. I really should remake that at some point. But the idea is that you are a guy who's constantly moving throughout this battlefield and you're being attacked from all sides by different colored enemies. And you have to draw lines of enemies to the beat of the game and summon them into the beat of the game in order to keep yourself alive. And it's actually really engaging once you get used to it. So you end up just going through and just constantly swiping your finger on the screen to the beat. And I had a lot less trouble with it than Crypt of the Necrodancer, I tell you that much, because the game's nowhere near that punishing. But yeah, it's a really interesting little RTS style game. And they added like a free music pack as well. So you have a fair few levels to go through. Persona 4, Dancing All Night. It's a terrible rhythm game in my personal opinion. The idea is that it's almost exactly the same as Super Beat Sonic, which I'm coming up to eventually. And the idea is that you've got buttons on the left and the right sides of the screen. You've got rings that you have to press the shoulder buttons on, which they added. And you've got a bunch of different... you've got a long story mode, and you've got... which has the main characters from Persona 4 in it, which is really fan servicey. And you've got the ability to dress up all your characters and all that. The problem is that the music they include in this game, some of the remixes are great, but some of them are terrible, which is a bad thing. The story mode is basically the same thing like 5 times over, so it gets extremely repetitive extremely quickly. None of the fan favorite characters from Persona 4 get any sort of character development whatsoever, and at the end of every single song, they break the game's character by playing the same fucking music over and over again, and it just breaks the flow. It breaks the atmosphere. And you don't really get to hear much about what the Persona 4 characters did after Persona 4. So it just feels like an entirely wasted opportunity, and I don't like it one bit, honestly. There were other problems with it, but they kind of got fixed in patches, so I'm not going to say too much more about that. Persona 4 Golden. How have you not bought this yet? This is literally the one game everyone buys a Vita for. It's an 80-hour... school life RPG where you get to know a bunch of different characters, you save their lives, there's a ton of story detail, you build up social links, which means you can go and associate with your favorite characters and tell them, and just, you know, you can even do things like get girlfriends, and you can, there's a lot of character depth, and it's just an absolutely wonderful experience. There's a ton of, like, side events that happen, and there's a heap of hidden stuff to go find, and there's a persona building system where you have to get a ton of, you can get a ton of different personas by fusing them together, and lots of items, and it's just a really, really engaging game. It's like, with an overall Metacritic score of 90 and multiple of Editor's Choice and Best of Awards, this game was the highest rated game on Metacritic in 2012. If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will. Brilliant game. If you don't own it yet, what the hell are you doing? Phineas and Ferb Day of Doofenshmirtz. I haven't played this one. But it's one of these, like, 3D games. Just, like, cheap Disney ones that they've bought out for the purpose of just making a few quick bucks, honestly. Like, there's another one like that that's coming up eventually, but, yeah. In fact, I may have already passed it. That's a bit strange. We'll come back to that. So, Pinball Arcade. Pinball Arcade is the best pinball game on the Vita. It's got over 50, at this point, real-life tables. And there's all sorts of tables. You've got Tales of the Arabian Nights, Black Hole, Theatre of Magic, and Ripley's Believe It or Not. Then, you've got all these table packs. All of them. You have a ton of them. There's like, again, 50-something tables. The physics in Pinball Arcade are amazing. They feel really close to real life. The game is extremely hard, but thankfully you don't have quarters to worry about in this. So you can play the pinball tables as much as you like, and there's a ton of goals to do on every table, so there's always something to go do. It's a really good game. Pinball Heroes Complete. This series originally came out on PSP, but for some reason they for some reason they decided to re-release them all here. To be fair, not that bad of an idea. The pinball tables are all 2D elements and stuff like that, and they're a lot easier than Zen Pinball 2 and Pinball Arcade. But you get 8 tables and they're all alright. Like, nothing wrong with them, and it's pretty cheap for $6. There's something I need to search up real quick, because I'm pretty sure that I missed it. No, it's still there. Muppets Movie Adventures. This is another one of those games I spat out for a quick buck. I don't understand why this isn't listed in the store. But yeah, it's just a cheap 2D platformer. Doesn't feel like anything Muppets related at all. You can just swap it out and it's just not worth the time at all. Pirate Solitaire. It's a 8th floor game. Not worth it. Pixel Hunter. It's a really, really cheap 2D platformer that isn't anywhere near remotely enjoyable. It's got a ton of stupid shit to go along with it. Like, you have to collect 100 carats to earn a continue, but you can't get anywhere near that many in a decent playthrough. It's just, go watch my video on Pixel Hunter if you want to see an absolutely terrible game. Pixel Junk Monsters. It's a tower defense game and a really good one. You've got all these individual trees that can be turned into tower defense points, and there's a lovely theme going on here, and you're the turtle, so you have to run around and build all the trees and collect all the resources, which is actually kind of neat. And all the monsters come through and the towers take care of them and all that, and you can attack monsters yourself, which is kind of neat. It's a really neat little game. It's well worth picking up if you're a fan of tower defense. Pixel Dunk Shooter is a lot like Gravity Crash, where it's a 2D environment. You have to boost your way up. You have to do things like use water on lava and just manipulate the environment and kill a lot of enemies and collect a lot of hidden stuff. So, yeah. It's a pretty good shooter game. It's got a fair amount to do. It's alright. Nothing wrong with it. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. This was their Smash clone, or at least that's what they tried to do with it. And it's a 2D brawler where you pick one of multiple Sony franchise characters and put them all together into one big area and just make them fight. And they all have their own special attacks and all that. The downside being that you have to kill enemies using so-called super attacks that you build up via hitting the enemies, and then you take them all out in one shot, which some people don't like. I wasn't too against it, but it's just a little strange, honestly. A little strange of a mechanic, and you do get used to it, but again, it's not really anywhere near as fun as Super Smash Bros., where you literally knock them off the stage. That's a really clever idea. I don't know why they didn't do more of that. Cliff diving, fireworks, and table soccer are just AR, like, tests more than anything else. They're not really games, so they're not really worth talking about. PlayStation Vita Pets, a little bit more. The idea is you get a dog who talks to you and you take him on adventures. You go out into a big world and you go and you find stuff, and they're like items and stuff for your pet, and your pet levels up in all its abilities, and you go and, you go and give it to them, and it's nice, but at the same time, when the voice comes through, it freaks you the fuck out and makes you not want to play anymore, so it's really, really strange. Pocket RPG was an attempt to bring an iOS, iOS dungeon crawler RPG to Vita. But it doesn't work. It handles terribly. It's got no interesting mechanics to it whatsoever. It's very generic. 3 classes that are all extremely generic. It's just boring. Not worth your time at all. Poltergeist, a pixelated horror. It's a puzzle game where you have to try and scare all the people out of the house via using all the individual objects that you have. And you can only use these objects once or twice, so you have to use them in combination with lots of other people, and different people are affected by different things, and different people aren't affected by different things, so they'll all try and run away and stuff like that. It's a very interesting little concept. It was also done with Defend the House Terror Town, but Haunt the House Terror Town on PlayStation Mobile, I should say, sorry. But it's still pretty damn good, really. It's, well, I mean, it's not amazing, but I mean, for what it does itself pretty well, and it's a fun time if you like the concept. Project Root. The idea behind Project Root is that it's like a top-down shooter in a 3D space. So it's a classic shoot 'em up where you've got lots of enemies and you have to fight off lots of enemies with all sorts of different weaponry and gear, and you level up and you unlock new stuff as you go along. My main problem with it, I mean, it looks great and it sounds alright, but the problem is the camera isn't far back enough, so you can't see if you're about to get shot from behind until it's too late. So you end up taking hits from behind and you'll eventually die just from that. Which is kind of disappointing. Also of note, full game trial that costs money. Yeah, that's not right. Proteus. Proteus is a game literally where you wander around an island and just, like, look at it. Like, there's no real game mechanics to it at all. You just wander around this island. This very pretty looking procedurally generated island. But still, you just wander around this island and you look at the stuff and you sit back and try and relax and enjoy yourself. It's not really a game. It's just more like an interactive art exhibit more than anything else. Puddle. The idea of this is that it's a tilt platformer where you have to tilt the world and there's a bunch of water that comes down through the world and you have to try and get it all through to the end. And the more fluid you get to the end, the better score you get. It's an interesting little concept and it's got a demo, so it's more than worth it to go check that out. It can get really, really hard really fast though, so be careful of that. Pulse AR was probably the one good AR game that Sony came up with. The idea is that you use multiple AR cards to put down multiple things to reflect laser beams into goalposts with. So you put down a card and you can put an item on that card and use that whole thing to solve puzzles. It is probably the best example of AR being used in a game that I've seen. And it's $2, so it's actually pretty neat. If you've still got your AR cards lying around, you might as well give that a shot. Also Open Me, because Open Me was still pretty good. Pure Chess. It's chess. It's a really nice, really good looking version of chess, but it's still chess. It's got play by mail, so if you have a friend who's got a Vita and you want to play by the messaging system, then you can go do that. Putty Squad. I never played this, for good reason. This is a game that originally came out on the Amiga, and they're charging $25 for it. Actually, no, that's a lie. It never came out on Amiga because it got cancelled, but yeah, I mean, I'm not paying $25 for an Amiga level platformer. I'm sorry, guys. Puzzle by Nicole V, Slitherlink and Sudoku. They have like 30 Slitherlink and Sudoku puzzles in them. It's not very impressive, honestly. If they had like procedurally generated ones, or maybe ones that unlocked every day, then that'd be fine. But paying $5 for 30 or 50 or whatever it is, just no. There are better ways to get those sorts of puzzles. Anyway, that was O through P. I keep making that mistake. I'll be back next time for Q through R. This has been Blue Maxima, and I'll see you all next time.